Before a device reaches Microsoft 365, ask one question. Do we trust it? In this section, we'll use Intune compliance and security baselines to measure endpoint health, enforce secure settings, and help conditional access decide what gets in. So far, we've built the foundation: security architecture, strong identity controls, threat protection, and data governance. Now we connect those layers to endpoint health. With device compliance and Intune baselines, conditional access can evaluate not only who the user is, but whether the device is secure enough to use. In Zero Trust, a signed-in user is not enough. Microsoft 365 also needs confidence in the device making the request. Compliance policies define that baseline. Encryption is enabled, the operating system is current, firewall and antivirus are active, passwords are required, and the device is healthy. Intune applies these policies, reports status, and supports remediation when a device falls out of compliance. Conditional access uses that device signal, along with identity and risk signals, to decide the outcome. Allow full access, limit the session, or block access until the device is fixed. Intune acts as the control plane for managed endpoints. A device first needs to be enrolled or registered, so Microsoft Entra ID can establish its device identity: registered, joined, or hybrid joined. From there, Intune applies policies assigned to the user or device group, including security baselines, configuration settings, and compliance requirements. That state is evaluated continuously, not just once. The compliance result is shared with Entra Conditional Access, which decides whether the device is trusted enough to reach Microsoft 365 apps and other protected cloud resources. Effective compliance design begins by treating each platform separately. Windows, macOS, iOS, and Android expose different controls, so one generic standard usually creates gaps. After selecting the platform, define the required baseline: encryption, minimum OS version, password strength, firewall, antivirus, and overall device health. Assign the policy only to groups that can support it, and decide what happens when a device falls out of compliance. Start with pilot groups, monitor results, tune thresholds against risk, regulations, and support capacity, then expand confidently to broader managed devices. For Windows devices, compliance should answer a practical question: is this endpoint safe enough to access company data? Start with encryption, because BitLocker protects data if a laptop is lost or stolen. Check platform currency next, using minimum and maximum OS versions to block unsupported or risky builds. Also verify that firewall, antivirus, and anti-malware services are enabled and reporting healthy. Finally, confirm authentication requirements, such as password or PIN rules, along with any available device health signals. Together, these checks make device compliance a real access gate, not just an inventory label. Beyond Windows, compliance is not one size fits all. Each platform exposes different signals, so policies should focus on controls that matter and are actually supported. For mobile devices, jailbreak or root detection is critical because built-in security boundaries may be bypassed. Minimum OS versions reduce exposure to known vulnerabilities. Passcodes, encryption, and device threat levels add baseline protection where available. Ownership is the final design choice. Corporate devices can justify deeper management. Personal devices need lighter controls, clearer privacy boundaries, and access decisions based on compliance rather than unnecessary inspection. When a device falls out of compliance, the goal is not only to block access. The goal is to guide the user back to a healthy state. Define what happens at detection. Mark the device non-compliant immediately, or allow a grace period for lower-risk issues. Notify the user with the exact failure and clear fix steps. During rollout, use staged enforcement so users have time to remediate before access is restricted. Over time, review recurring failures to spot policy mistakes, device health problems, or areas where support needs improvement. Intune security baselines are Microsoft's recommended starting point for device and app hardening. They help you apply consistent settings for Windows, Edge, Defender, and Microsoft 365 apps, so security does not depend on who configured a device last. But a baseline should not be deployed blindly. Treat it as a governed standard. Review the settings, customize what fits your environment, test with pilot groups, document exceptions, and require change approval. Reassess periodically as Microsoft updates baselines and your risk profile changes. The Windows Security Baseline gives you a starting point for consistent endpoint hardening, not a one-click mandate. Begin by reviewing the default controls for account protection, local policies, device restrictions, and security options. Adjust anything that could disrupt users, legacy apps, peripherals, or admin workflows. Deploy to a small pilot group, then validate sign-in behavior, application compatibility, and support impact before expanding. As you scale, watch for conflicts with configuration profiles, endpoint security policies, existing group policy, and other baselines. Security baselines are not only an operating system concept. Many attacks come through the browser, endpoint protection settings, or Office documents. Defender baselines focus on protections like antivirus behavior, attack surface reduction, and endpoint security controls. Edge baselines reduce browser exposure by controlling extensions, password handling, smart screen, and site behavior. Microsoft 365 apps baselines help limit risky Office activity, especially unsafe macros and insecure content. Treat these as complementary layers. Apply them with Defender for endpoint recommendations, then validate carefully with application compatibility testing before broad deployment. Imagine a finance pilot where users suddenly receive two different browser hardening settings. Treat that as a conflict, not a device problem. Check which baseline, configuration profile, endpoint security policy, or legacy group policy is winning. If finance needs a temporary exception, document the reason, approval, and expiration date, then assign it only to that restricted group. Reporting becomes the safety net. It shows drift, devices falling out of compliance after changes or updates. Finally, test every baseline revision before broad rollout, because Microsoft's recommendations can change. Conditional access is where device management becomes an access decision. When a user signs in to Microsoft 365, Entra ID evaluates policy signals before allowing the session. A compliant device may be granted access, while a non-compliant device can be blocked or challenged with MFA. Policies can also vary by platform, so Windows, macOS, iOS, Android, and Linux can receive different controls. Ownership matters too. Corporate devices may be trusted differently than BYOD. Joined state, such as hybrid joined or cloud joined, helps align access with your identity and device strategy. Treat conditional access deployment as a controlled release, not a switch you flip all at once. Start in report-only mode to see who would be blocked, which devices fail compliance, and where exclusions may be needed. Test with pilot groups that represent real platforms, ownership models, and job roles. Combine compliance with MFA, sign-in risk, session controls, or app protection when the scenario calls for layered protection. After each stage, review sign-in logs, conditional access insights, Intune compliance data, and user remediation feedback. Adjust, enforce, and keep monitoring. The big takeaway is that trusted collaboration starts with trusted devices. Compliance policies measure whether endpoints meet your standards, and Intune baselines harden common Microsoft platforms. Conditional access turns those signals into smarter access decisions. Keep success practical. Roll out in phases, monitor results, remediate gaps, govern exceptions, and keep validating as we move into app, Teams, file, and mail security.